Hello and welcome. I am Light and this is my channel. This is the first in a series of 3 videos. I'm going to be covering 4 murders in the Yosemite National Park area. And then I'm going to be covering the man charged with the murders. During these 3 videos there will be a shocking twist that you might not see coming. I hope you stick around for all of the videos, and if you would please give them a thumbs up and share them with people you know who are interested in true crime. I would appreciate that. If you are not subscribed and you would like to be, please go ahead and click that subscribe button. And if you'd like to be notified when my content goes live, which will help you be sure to listen to all 3 videos, then please go ahead and click that bell. Alright, and let's get started. On February 12th, 1999, Carol Sund, who was 42 years old, and her daughter, Julie, who was 15, and their family friend, Sylvina Peloso, who was 16, left their home in Eureka, California to go on vacation in the area near Yosemite National Park, which is also located in California. The 3 flew to San Francisco, where Carol rented a 1999 red Pontiac Grand Prix. They stopped in Stockton, where Julie took part in a cheerleading contest at the University of the Pacific. Then they headed out for Cedar Lodge in El Porto on February 14th, which is located on Yosemite's western slope. There, they got a room with a plan to stay for a few days. Carol and her husband Jens owned a real estate business in Stockton, California. They had been hosting Sylvina, who was a foreign exchange student from Argentina and also a friend of Julie's. She was spending 3 months with the family. Jens couldn't accompany them on the trip because he needed to prepare for an upcoming business trip. On a beautiful morning on the 15th of February, the 2 teenagers and Carol hiked into Yosemite National Park on one of the many trails. That evening, the group grabbed some videos from the lodge's service desk to take back to their room to watch. It was the last time that the 3 were ever seen again. What followed after that turned in to be one of the most shocking crimes in both the national park system and American history. And it also involved a shocking twist. One that nobody could see coming. And one that we will cover later in this series. The staff at the inn claimed that when they cleaned the room the next morning, they had detected no evidence of foul play or anything that made them suspicious. The checkout had been done in advance, so the keys were left on the room desk. Jens was scheduled to meet them in San Francisco. He was going to be flying to Arizona, and the 2 teenagers and his wife were going to accompany him. While he attended his meeting, the 3 of them were going to tour the Grand Canyon. Jens was surprised when he did not find his wife and those girls at the airport, and he assumed that she had flown on ahead. Now, of course, we'll probably never know why he assumed that, rather than wondering what had happened to them and why they hadn't gotten there. But that was his line of thinking. He didn't try again to contact them until the next day. And then that failed as well, so he called the police. The rental company confirmed that Carol had never returned the rented Pontiac, nor had she told them that they were extending their agreement. The local police and the Yosemite Park Rangers began to search the area where the 3 were last seen. Initial suspicion was that they may have wandered off the main hiking path and got lost in the park. For 4 weeks, police, family, volunteers searched the area in and near Yosemite National Park by helicopter, foot, and skis. They were looking for the missing red 1990 Pontiac Grand Prix as well as the women. Then, Carol's wallet turned up in Modesto, which included money and her credit cards. Something was clearly very, very wrong. FBI agent Nick Rossi said on February 26th, "At this point, we have not yet uncovered evidence to allow us to determine conclusively whether this was a tragic accident or a criminal act." 2 weeks later, FBI agent James Maddock, now placed in charge of the investigation, told the press, "We feel almost certain that the women were victims of a violent crime." Because of the discovery of Sund's wallet in suburban Modesto, police and FBI searched the local routes in and out of that spot, interviewing homeowners, business owners, and others who may have seen them. The Bureau relocated its headquarters from Yosemite to Modesto at this point, and on February 28th, 12 days after the women's disappearance, hinted that it was no longer treating the Sund incident as a missing persons case, but a murder. More than 1,000 leads came in. People confessed, and yet there was nothing produced. Still, the Bureau intensified its search, recruiting the use of more high-tech equipment and air support. Unofficially, Jen Sund offered a $250,000 reward for information that would lead to the return of his wife, his daughter, and their missing friend. After a couple of weeks, he upped the sum to $300,000. But there was nothing. Carol's parents, Frances and Carol Carrington, appeared on Good Morning America to ask for the prayers of Americans and their help in locating their daughter and the children. The other Sund children believed that their mother and sister Julie would be returned. But by the middle of March, their hopes faded as well. Gina Sund, who was 13 years old at the time, had written a poem after her mother, her sister, and their family friend had been missing for over a month. Gina read this poem in front of 1,000 or more people who had gathered in Modesto. And these are the words that she read. "Deep in my heart, I know something my mind does not want to learn. I try to stay strong because I know that's what you'd want your baby to be. But, Mommy, I don't want you to leave me." Those are the heartbreaking words of a 13-year-old girl trying to come to grips with the reality that she was likely never going to see her mother or sister again. The Sund family's worst fears were confirmed when a hiker wandered onto the site of a burned-out red 1998 Pontiac, hidden off the Highway 108 in Stanislaus Forest region on March 18th. The California Highway Patrol verified the car's license plate as the Sund's rented vehicle and immediately notified the FBI. Agents arrived at the scene early on the 19th, and upon opening the trunk, investigators found 2 charred bodies. After several days, the bodies were identified as Carol Sund and Sylvania Palesso through dental records. Then, on March 25th, Julie Sund's body was discovered near Lake Pedro in Tulum County. It was badly decomposed, and her throat had been cut. Over the next few weeks, a task force formed, including FBI agents and law officers from 4 surrounding counties. They arrested several known sex offenders, drug users, and ex-convicts with a record of violence from within a 75-square-mile area between Modesto and Sonoma. The police reckoned that the killer of the 3 women was familiar with the county given the location of the Pontiac, The car was hidden off a spur road where locals dump old refrigerators, cars, and washing machines. By mid-April, those who had been arrested were ordered to testify in front of a grand jury in Fresno, California. 4 men were considered the main murder suspects in the initial inquiries. By the end of June, the FBI had reviewed the testimonies of and the evidence linked to the suspects in the custody. At that time, the Bureau stated that while no one had yet been charged, it felt that those responsible for killing the 3 women in Yosemite were already behind bars. The men arrested were Michael Mick Lerwick. He was 42 years old. He was from Modesto. He was part of a vagabond group of methamphetamine users and friends centered in Modesto area. Lerwick grew up in Tulum County, near where the bodies of Carol Sund and Sylvania Pelosa were found. He was jailed March 16th after allegedly shooting a Modesto police officer. He had a long criminal history and had been questioned extensively by the FBI. He denied any role in the Yosemite slayings. The second man was Eugene Rufus Dykes. He was 32 years old. He was also from Modesto and Lerwick's half-brother. He was arrested in March. The third, Billy Joe Strange, was 39 years old. He was an El Porto employee who worked at the Cedar Lodge restaurant where the murdered women were last seen. He was arrested March 15th when he allegedly reported to his parole officer with liquor on his breath. The FBI pushed for Strange's arrest, but he denied any part in the triple murder. And then there was Darrell Gray Stevens, who was 55 years old. Stevens was Strange's roommate. He was convicted in 1978 for rape and robbery. He was jailed on March 14th for failing to register as a sex offender. Larry Dwayne Utley, he was 41 years old, an associate of Dykes in Lerwick, first picked up during a March parole sweep. He was arrested in May on an unrelated crime charge, but he was soon released. Teresa K. Gray, who was 36 years old, of Modesto, the FBI task force investigating Yosemite issued a federal warrant for her arrest after she failed to appear in a Stanislaus County drug court in June. Kenneth Soldier Stewart was 24 years old, a former cellmate of Dykes, who was charged with attempted murder. He has been questioned about any involvement. Angelia Dale, who testified before the federal grand jury, she was subpoenaed because she is a friend of Dykes in Lerwick. Maria Ledbetter, who was 24 years old, of Modesto, an admitted methamphetamine addict and former girlfriend of Dykes, about whom she was questioned extensively. And Jeffrey Wayne Keeney, who was 32 years old, of Modesto, arrested on an unrelated drug charge. He had been questioned about the Yosemite case. Then, even though the FBI had publicly stated, as if to settle the fears of the public, that they believed that the man or men or women involved in these horrific murders were already behind bars, something happened. There was another murder. Please come back for part 2 of this 3-part series. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and thank you for coming.